Great! I think we can all agree on that. So I'll be taking a look at some of my favorite women in some of my favorite games. And please tell me all about the women that you love in gaming. I need more! Adalia the Valador is a true hero of the people. She fights the evil Count Duke, who is hoarding the wealth he extorted and employs a whole army of guards to suppress his subjects. Adalia has made it her goal to defeat him and chase him out of her precious home. And she does it in style, whether it's swinging elegantly on a pole or challenging his minions to duels.
On guard!
Her swashbuckling aura is not confined to her fighting skill alone. She also has a sharp tongue that keeps her enemies on their toes.
In that case, let's improve the likeness by rearranging your face.
On Guard perfectly captures the quirky and exciting adventure movies of the late 80s and 90s, right down to the incredibly charming protagonist.
When the Count Duke's lackeys arrested me for no good reason. For the third time this week.
On Guard doesn't have a complicated narrative or in-depth character development, but that's not what this game wants to be anyway. It's a short and sweet story about a woman making the world a better place through sword fighting and witty quips.
Has your daddy cut off your allowance?
And sometimes that's enough for me to have the time of my life. The whimsical nature of the story and characters fits this game perfectly, and it's something to just relax into. Adalia is also a very good encapsulation of what I wanted to be as a kid. Sword in hand, fighting off evils, and always a rebuttal at hand.
Well, well, Captain... Captain?
Sadly, that's not quite how I turned out, but I also fall completely apart when talking to a woman who is definitely not my crush. So we at least have that in common. But anyway, Adalia is a great protagonist, and I really do hope they give us a sequel. I can't get enough of the awkward flirting between her and Zaida. It's just peak queer.
And you? I mean, what are you doing at this party?
On Guard! Jala is a perfect example of what it's like to be in your early 20s and having to deal with all the bullshit you did as a teenager, while not really knowing how to move forward into becoming an adult with responsibilities yet.
I hate following instructions. I'm an improviser. I thrive on the unexpected.
And that is why I love her. It's incredibly relatable. She left her hometown 3 years ago to follow Jennifer, a much older woman she was in love with. We don't know why that relationship ultimately ended, but we do get the sense that it might have been pretty toxic.
I hate Jennifer for taking advantage of you.
And the reason for why Jala cut ties with her family and friends completely.
Maybe it wouldn't feel so new if you had visited in the last 3 years.
It's a tough relationship to reconcile, but it's by far not the only problem she has to deal with. See, Jala was a bit of a wrecking ball as a teenager, which her past romantic partners have suffered from.
Cruel.
Heartless. And this is another area where she needs to grow and learn how to apologize properly. The good thing is, she is willing to do so. At least I played her this way, there is some choice involved here. And while she does battle her many exes, in the end, they're all friends again.
How about we try being friends instead of solutions to each other's problems?
But there is definitely some hurt left behind, and some relationships are easier to fix than others. Overall, though, Thirsty Suitors is very wholesome and doesn't rely on cliché drama tropes to stir the pot. On the contrary, it takes a very adult approach to conflict resolution and encourages its players to accept other characters' emotions.
Emotional maturity. Who would have thought?
It also is such a safe space for queers of any kind. Jala's family is very accepting of her queerness, and the discussions around it are super sweet and honest. Jala is flawed and imperfect, but that's what makes her such a great character. Sally Wheeler is exactly my kind of woman. Strong in appearance with the shoulders of a professional swimmer who can punch the ever-loving shit out of bad guys and has the foul mouth of a sailor.
Can we stop fucking about and just get on with it, please?
And who will tear every capitalist she comes across apart, but who also loves dogs and works at shelter, and who is the healer of the group.
I've got you!
What I'm saying is, I want a strong woman to carry me over her shoulder, firewoman style, who I can raise dogs with. I'm very lonely. Anyway, Sally is one of 3 protagonists in Sunday Gold. She lives in a cyberpunk world in which evil corporations are using cybernetically enhanced dogs to compete against each other in deadly races to entertain themselves and the masses. Of course, she's not very fond of these companies, and she's totally down to wreck the biggest one, Hogan Industries. Her compatriots Frank and Gavin are along for the ride, and their adventures are exciting, bloody, and completely insane. Motherfucker, son of a bitch! Fuck! What I really like about Sally is her resolve. She will do anything to get the job done, even if she has to pretend to be a peppy scientist who knows things. And she has no problem putting people in trash compactors to achieve her goals. It's all in the name of the dogs, okay? As the healer of the group, she's also extremely important in fights. Without her, this game would be impossible to beat. She's just an all-around talent, and her disgust at wealth and the cruelness of the elite just make me wanna hug her. But I might get punched in the face for it, so what? It's also just a joy to have the female character be the group's go-to brute. Since Frank is more of a rogue and Gavin a computer nerd, she's the one who lifts the heavy things and punches the hardest.
You know the drill, Frank. Muscle, firepower, knowing how to pick a lock. That's where we come in.
It's certainly not the first game to do this, but I had such a good time with this subversion of typical tropes. Gerda is a young woman living in German-occupied Denmark in 1939. With a German father and a Danish mother, she sits right in the middle of the conflict of World War II.
Even in our little rural hamlet, the soldiers came. The Gestapo came. The war bared its bloody fangs.
While Denmark always remained officially neutral, Germany had all but created a protectorate, and the German minority in southern Denmark, where this game takes place, were treated much differently than the Danes themselves, especially when it came to rations and other supplies that weren't readily available. While Gerda may not have an inclination one way or the other at the beginning of the game, circumstances will soon force her into choosing sides.
In an instant, the peaceful life that Anders and I had strived to protect was gone.
Since this is a choose-your-own-adventure game, Gerda's approach to different situations can be quite distinct. But her personality is still that of a resolute woman who has to take her fate into her own hands, otherwise she will be crushed by the machine that is World War II. Neutrality in war times becomes a luxury for the wealthy, a shield of cowardice that many could no longer hide behind.
But his wealth fueled his power. He wasn't willing to do anything which would put that wealth at risk.
And Gerda learns that it can get personal very quickly. She's such an intriguing character, very gentle in nature. She isn't violent, she has a lot of empathy for her fellow citizens, both German and Danish alike. But she also needs to face the cold, harsh truth of what is happening to her country, her family, and to herself.
It was a place that represented my independence. And in one single night, I put all that at risk and betrayed my duty as a nurse.
I personally like war stories like these. The civilian perspective is always something I find much more intriguing than the soldier's one. Because you have to reconcile with your own actions, the actions of the people who lead your country, and try to stay human throughout the conflict. This game is full of very, very tough choices, because you will be tempted to sacrifice part of your humanity, either out of fear, pragmatism, or simply because you need to. Gerda, A Flame in Winter is a brilliant game, and Gerda herself a great protagonist. We need more women like her. Junot de Monge isn't an easy protagonist. She's not heroic, doesn't have any cool powers or a fantastic story to take you on. She's a very flawed human being in an almost too real situation who doesn't know how to deal with the hand that she has been dealt.
Holy fucking shit.
We meet her at a hospital where a doctor tells her that her mother has had an aneurysm. Junot calls her mom Marie and is completely taken aback by the revelation that Marie put her forth as her advocate. Junot never signed any forms. Her mother just did that behind her back.
Wait, you mean you didn't know? Well, you should see what my signature looks like on the form.
And now it is up to Junot to decide her comatose mother's fate. They did not have a great relationship, as you might have inferred. The whole game revolves around this relationship, but also Junot's life in general. What shaped her to become the woman she is? A woman who does shitty things, makes jokes at the wrong time and about the wrong things, and can be described as cynical and callous at points.
It must be quite something to be the daughter of someone so talented. I've heard this one before.
That's a polite way to say, it can't be easy to have a nutcase for a mother.
But also a woman who learns from her mistakes, has the capacity to grow and punch through the walls she built around herself. Junot isn't easy, but that's what makes her so compelling and special to me. I don't know if I'd want to be friends with her exactly, but talking about grief, loss, and what it means to move on, I would like that. She's good at calling herself out. I love honest stories about growth and genuine self-reflection. Because we humans usually aren't very beautiful inside. Because we deal with a lot of shit throughout our lives. And Junot's no different. And whether or not forgiveness can be earned in any situation is up for each and every one of us to decide for ourselves. And here are more indie games for you to check out.